bring in John Dunham's father, who of course is Big D, Dave Dunham, and Dave is well known by Poppy's fans for being the announcer at Rockingham Road, also commentary and a director when we had our fantastic seasons there at last. Well, welcome Dave to Poppy's TV, and
great to be here.
It was because of your involvement with Northants TV and Andy, who did all the screening, that we decided to try our crowd fundraiser to get those tapes digitalised, so we can actually screen them and keep the history.
It was an interesting time. Andy Williamson was an interesting bloke. I came across him mainly because at the time I was doing a lot of the media stuff at Kettering, standing in your shoes, as I remember, Paul, taking over originally with the club call that you had done so well for so many years, and humbly I followed, and that led to quite a lot of media work. And Andy Williamson set up Northants TV. I didn't know anything about it at all until Peter Mallinger, the chairman, then had a word with me and said, there's this chap going to cover the Poppies on television. He needs a commentator. You're going to do it.
Press gang?
I suppose so. Yeah.
We always are. I know.
Although it was quite interesting, and I met Andy for the first time. I had absolutely no idea what it was all about, and I met him. I can't remember what the match was.
Was it Hereford, the one that we were showing?
It may have been. I don't know. I can't remember. But what I do remember is that I met him outside the ground at Rockingham Road for the first time, and he said, well, what we're going to do first of all is a live piece to camera. And I said, well, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. And he said, well, I'm going to film you and you're going to talk. And I'd never stood in front of a camera before, and I did it and I talked. And I remember seeing it when it was shown on the TV, just how wooden I was. It was just awful. And then he said, after the match, he said, well, I'll see you tomorrow on the Sunday in the studio to do the commentary, because it wasn't live commentary. They dubbed the commentary on to tape. He edited the whole thing overnight, spent the whole of the night in the studio, and the first time I went over, I can remember it very clearly, I was absolutely petrified, and I had no idea what I was meant to be doing. And he had gone home and he had left it in charge of one of his producers, whose name I can't remember. And so I said, well, what do I do? And he said, you just commentate. When the red light goes on, just start talking. And that's what I did for 15 minutes or so, however long it was, for the first half. And we did it without a break, no retakes or anything like that. I was quite proud of that. And that's how it went on. And for a couple of years, that's what we did. And we had great fun. I loved it, and it was terrific as well for the football club, because it, for a while, it did bring it into the sort of public domain, and there were a number of people who I knew who watched it simply because they'd heard my voice, and I said, well, watch it anyway. I don't think they were particularly taken with the standard of the commentary, because it wasn't very good, but at least it brought the Poppies to a wider audience than would otherwise have been the case. So at the time, it lasted about 2 years, as you said, I think, earlier in your intro, and it was good fun. Then, as with all these things, it went pop. But I have to say, I mean, I had no idea that Andy had kept the tapes, and the fact that he was willing to donate them to the club, and the club's been able to raise the money to digitalise them and for there to be a record of that particular era.
It started really with Peter Short. He got in contact, and they said about 80 to 100 tapes, and they're from 1997 to 2002, I think it is. So it might encompass the FA Trophy run as well. I've seen a couple of them, and you are on there, and you devalue your commentary, because I think it's pretty good, what I heard of it. And,
it certainly did cover the trophy run, because I remember that as well, that I was down at with the team at Sopwell House in St Albans, which was the hotel where they stayed before the Wembley game, and I remember I was doing interviews with Colin Bowden, who was captain then, and various of the other players, all for the Northants TV, and Andrew Bodfish, who worked for Northants TV then and went on to make a name for himself in Eurosport. He was there as well, and it was just terrific. And again, it just brought the whole thing to an audience who may otherwise not have seen it.
Well, hopefully we'll be bringing some of those images back to life and into our archive, historical boot of Poppy's TV's website, and we'll be showing some of those old footage for the new fantasy for generations to come. But also, David, as you know, you like myself, you were involved at Rockingham Road for a long time, and announced this week, very sad as it is, you were there as well, as I say, and Rockingham Road is no more, and it's a desperate shame, isn't it?
It's been very sad for a long time. I've got so many happy memories there, both as a fan, which is what I always was. I just happened to end up as a director. I'm not quite sure how, but I had
press gang.
Well, I'm not even sure that was the case. It was just one of those things. But when I was there at Rockingham Road, I was privileged because not only did I end up as a director, but much more importantly, I was involved with the players. More important to me, I was involved with the players and the managers, and I was a middle-aged groupie, to be honest, and it was just fantastic. And the thing about Rockingham Road, those who had been there will know, those who hadn't never will now, but it was just a fantastic football ground. The atmosphere on match day was superb, and even when the place was empty, there was an atmosphere. It was just a genuine football ground. There aren't many of them that exist now, and the fact that it's gone, it was in the heart of the town. Now they're all out of town, and it was just a wonderful place to watch football.
I know what you're saying. I once stood in the centre circle I think it was a November afternoon, taking some photographs, and there was nobody else in there but me as when I was secretary, and I took some photographs, and you're right, there was that eerie atmosphere in there that you just can't gleam from places like Nen Park or the plastic grounds of today. It was incredible, and the history that goes on there is going to be sadly missed, but there's not a lot we can do about it now, I don't think. I think that nail is in that proverbial coffin, and I'm afraid Rockingham Road will be no more.
And it is sad. I just hope, whether they will or not, assume it's going to be developed for housing, that as they have done, I think, with other football grounds that have disappeared over the years, that they might just decide to keep a spot to mark the centre spot, or to call the roads after famous players or something
Banya
like
Drive.
Sam Banya Drive, wouldn't that be wonderful? And Sam Banya, bless him, wherever he was, would love that. But I just hope that there is some sort of legacy. It would be very sad indeed if it just disappeared.
Okay, David, that's great to have you on. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed today's match. Hopefully when we get these discs all ready and sorted out, we'll get you back on again. You can talk us through some of the commentary.
I'd be delighted.
And you can go back and have a quick view. So great to have you. Hope everything goes okay today. Let's hope for another win for the Poppies.
Indeed.
And Dave's going to leave